All right, guys, this next section that we're going to be covering on the Senior Solutions Friday Agency training call, the tip of the week is going to be reducing your chargeback. So, what Jimmy and I are going to be covering is giving you some tips and techniques on how to keep more of your policies on the books and how to have better placement and persistency. And like I said a minute ago, I'm very proud, and I know Jimmy is too, is that we have some of the highest placement and persistency rates, not only within YIG, but I bet you in final expense within the country. And the reason why is because we're just not out there slinging and slamming policies, is that we're building relationships with our clients and we're doing all the little extra things because we're professionals. So this little segment is going to be on how to reduce your chargebacks. I got a lot of tips here. You want to take notes, but in addition to that, this is going to be put up on the Senior Solutions website, so you'll be able to catch it on the replay as well. The first tip, and probably the most important, is selling within the client's needs and means, meaning don't oversell. Okay? So in this business, it does not pay you to slam products or to pressure or close someone on a higher price or a higher product because um, there's a good chance they're going to cancel. And there are some people that will kind of go for it, and you think you're doing something because some people are just kind of like non-confrontational, and you think you made this big sale, and then 2 weeks later, you get a phone call that they don't want it because you pushed too hard. Guys, we're not selling cars. You go to a lot and you buy a car. Good luck trying to return it if you can't afford the payment. You're stuck with it, right? Insurance is different. These people, they can cancel the policy. So make sure that you're doing the right thing. Make sure that and if you follow our system and you do the cool down, you do the pushback, and we're asking these clients 2 or 3 times to make sure that the policy that we're selling them fits within their needs. It's going to help reduce your chargebacks. Now, there's no guarantee. There's nothing you can do to reduce all chargebacks. But if you follow all the tips that we're going to bring on today's webinar, I promise you can get your 13-month persistency up to about 85 to 90%, which is in final expense, that's pretty damn good. And that's our goal, is to get you that high. I would say most agents are probably at about 75%. We want you to be 10% higher than that. 10% higher is a big deal because not only are you keeping that money, think about it, you got 10% more renewals as well. The second tip is sell on emotion, not logic. In other words, what we're saying is you got to find the pain. That's why we get into these deep conversations with our clients. That's why we talk about their children. That's why we get them to talk about people that have passed away recently within the family. That's how we talk about what is it going to be, what is it going to mean to you, Mrs. Jones, to have a policy like this, to have the peace of mind to know that your son Joe and your daughter Julie aren't going to have a financial burden to cover your final expenses. Dig deep into the emotional part of it. And when you dig deep into the emotional part of it, I promise you, your policies will more likely stick. And I can't tell you how many clients I've had that have broken down in tears and have cried and told me that, they're just like, Joe, you don't know. I've been praying for this. I've been praying I, that I could get this problem solved, and then you showed up. You're the answer to my prayers. I just can't tell you how many people tell you that. And very few products do people sell are as important as life insurance. Think about it. Very, very few products. I really can't think of anything that's like more important than what we're doing. So find that emotion. Don't be afraid. Don't sell on logic. Sell on emotion. So important. People will remember that, man. They'll remember. You've heard the saying, people don't remember what you said. They remember how you made them feel. So people will remember feelings like for years and years and years. The other is use the pre-sale folder Add value. Man, you just go in there and write up a policy and you leave them a business card, and then a week later, um, 2 weeks later, they haven't heard from you, and then some other goofball from some other company swings by, and they don't have anything. They don't have a policy receipt. They don't have jack. And then some other dude shows up because he's door knocking, or they filled out maybe he's following up on a B lead from 3 years ago. And yeah, I got this. And your client says, well, I got this business card, but I haven't heard from my agent. I don't know what I have. And the other agent's like, well, they must have left you a policy receipt or a brochure. No, I don't have anything. But man, how about, you know, the way to prevent that is they got that pre-sale folder with all your information in there. They got the policy receipt. The client's like, no, I'm done. Joe Johnson's my agent. In fact, he just called me 3 days ago. My policy's being uh, put in force. They got that nice folder. Add value. That's the biggest thing I can say, man. Your presentation and what we do, it has to be a value added presentation. And people will keep the policy longer if you add value to it. And believe it or not, just doing something simple like the pre-sale folder and giving them all the little extras, that's adding value. The next one is proper field underwriting. Sell the right product. Why is that important? Here's the reason why it's important. A couple of reasons I can tell you why it's important. One is that if every time you get into a situation where maybe you feel overwhelmed with all their health issues because they're diabetic, they have COPD, they had a heart attack 5 years ago, whatever it is, and you're like, oh my God, this must be guaranteed issue, and you put them in a guaranteed issue like an AIG, Gerber, or whoever, and a real agent shows up behind them 6 months later, maybe even a year later, and they're looking at this client, and your agent Joe Johnson put you into a graded policy. Mrs. Jones, you should have got a same day coverage policy. I can put you with XYZ company in this case because I do it all the time. And Jimmy, I know you do it too. We see agents that take shortcuts and automatically just take the easy path. They put their client in a graded or guaranteed issue product, and then we walk in and find out, well, Mrs. Jones, you shouldn't be in this policy. You actually qualify for same day coverage. Boom, put them into Transamerica. You put them into something else. What happens? That other agent's getting a chargeback. So don't let that happen to you. Make sure you're doing proper field underwriting.
And let me interject something here. Not all the agents out there have access to the carriers that we use.
That's
Some
right.
some of these agents are captive where they only have one, I guess you can say, underwriting guideline, and in many cases, they don't qualify for day one coverage with that other carrier. Or there's a couple of them out there, and I won't say any names, but they basically train them to sell the graded, and only offer the level if they need to close the deal. And they're just, I mean, because they're captive. It's the carrier and sells all in one, and they pay the agent the same rate of commission. So the agent is trained just to go ahead and write them up on a graded automatically. I mean, and it's a higher rate, and there's a 2-year waiting period. So I guess you can say it's less risk for the insurance company, but they're really doing a disservice to your client. So be bold and go out there and do the right thing, and help your client get the best coverage.
Yeah. And then before I move to the next one, the one other tip on field underwriting, why proper field underwriting is important, is answering or going through all the health questions and really make sure that you're digging deep. And you'll learn this because me personally, I've lost a few deals, Jimmy, where I didn't do proper field underwriting, and then it goes in. I submit the application as like level, and then it turns out it ends up being graded or even declined because I forgot to dig deep on a few health questions. Maybe it's complications for diabetes. Maybe we find out that this person had severe complications. Maybe they had neuropathy or some other thing that went on. Maybe the pill that they were taking was it really was for congestive heart failure, and I didn't ask that question. So that can really put you in a trick bag too. So that's why it's good to do proper field underwriting as well. Make sure you're putting me in the right product. That way you're not putting yourself in a position where you got to call the client, a week later and say, "Hey, Mr. Jones, sorry I couldn't get you approved for what I quoted you. Oh, by the way, if that were to happen, never call the client and tell them that." I shouldn't even be saying that. Show up. So if that does ever happen to you, by the way, this is another tip for saving deals, is that if you do have a situation where your client does not get approved as you sent it in, my recommendation is what I do is I show up in person. Like I do you do the same thing, Jimmy? I'm assuming.
Yes.
Yeah, don't try to save it on the phone, man. Save it in person. Okay. Um, So that's enough on that little tip there. I think I mentioned it, but this is all going to be recorded, and we'll get it up on the website no later than Tuesday or Wednesday of next week. Reducing chargebacks, adding the child or grandchild rider. How could that possibly reduce chargebacks? Number one, it's a very inexpensive add-on. For example, Transamerica for the $5,000 benefit, it's 85 cents a month. That's it per grandchild. So even if they got 10 grandchildren, it's $8.50. So or 55 cents, whatever it is. It's very inexpensive. But what we have found, and if we make a big deal about this, is that people that have dependents or they have children or grandchildren as riders on their policies, they're less likely to cancel the policy. Because when they call to cancel the policy, or if it's lapsing, and we pull out the paperwork and we see that they've got the riders on there, it's a big deal because now we can say, Mrs. Jones, not only are you going to lose your policy, but your grandchildren are going to lose their policy as well, and we will not be able to protect their insurability. So people are more likely to keep the policy on the books if you have a grandchild rider, and they are, again, I'm just telling you, they're very inexpensive. It's well worth it to add a rider, the children on as a rider, even if you're going to sell the grandchildren a standalone policy. I would still put them on as a rider with the grandparents.
Well, plus Joe, it's an additional value. You just, if you think
Right.
about it, let's say it's a $10,000, face amount, and I don't know, let's say the premium is $60 a month, but then they insure two kids for 5,000 each, and now it's $62 a month. Okay, that's a lot more value. The value is expanded. So that's another reason why it's just a better value.
Absolutely. Tremendous. You're adding tremendous value. And that's what we do, guys. That's what we do, man. That's what we teach at Senior Solutions is add value, add value, add value. Send out thank you cards. Jimmy, I know you do this. I do this, guys. First thing I do when I come back and I'm scrubbing my application, I'm sending out a thank you card to my clients. Thanking them for the business, reminding them about referrals, sending out business cards in the envelope. And you can pick up, if you want to be cheap, go to the dollar store. You can get a pack. I don't know how many are in there. I think there's like 5 or 6, maybe more. I don't know. Maybe whatever. But go to the dollar store if you don't want to spend big money on thank you cards. Go to the dollar store. You can get a stack of thank you cards for $1. $1. You just put a little handwritten note in there, throw in a business card, and mail it to them.
I'll give you a tip too that I used to do. I now have pre-printed cards that have my phone number and contact information. But before I did that, this is what I used to do, and I think you're gonna really love this. Is I would go to these. I think they're all over the U.S. These older, I don't know what you call them, artsy kind of little towns that, you know, usually outside the city. Like over here we got Bernie, and we have Fredericksburg, Texas, and so I'll go in the shops over there, and there's always like shops that sell antiques and like old cool stuff. And what I look for when I'm in those shops are old postcards. And I'm talking like old postcards from, you know, World War II or the 50s or 60s or maybe even the 20s. But like I get these really old postcards, and they're usually like $1 or less, and they've never been written on. They're clean, and they have some really cool pictures on them. And so I will send them a postcard and then do a handwritten note personalizing it to them and just mail them the postcard. So the postage is less expensive, and there's nothing to open up. They see it, they love the postcard, so they usually save it. When I go back to their homes, you know, they have it on the refrigerator or somewhere because it's a really cool card. So you can do that, or you can do the pre-printed. So for myself, I kind of ran out of time to go and, you know, hunt those down. So now I go with the pre-printed. But I mean, whenever I'm in those areas, I always look those out. So
That's pretty cool. So they're like authentic, like are they like reprinted, or they're like really postcards like from?
no, they're old postcards. They're the
Oh,
real
that's really
deal.
cool, dude.
They're all over the place. Sometimes you can even find them at garage sales, but you know, it could be, you know, like a really cool postcard for downtown Chicago as an example, or you know, downtown Tampa, or you know, it might be you know, like a church. Like I remember I had a client that had told me about a Baptist church that he had been a member of since he was like fresh out of the military, and this guy was now in his late 70s, and he told me the name of that church. And then it just so happened I saw a postcard with that church on it. I mean, so that was like
Oh
really,
wow.
you know. But you know, you can find all kinds of stuff. It could be, you know, a beach setting or whatever. And so like you go and you find all these different cool pictures, and then just, you know, based on your conversation, the personality of your client, try to match something that's going to best, you know, fit that person. But they
That's a
really
great.
appreciate it
That's a
because
great. That's a great tip, dude. It really is. That's amazing. That's so cool. We talked about this earlier, but use the beneficiary certificate. People are less likely to cancel their policy if you've delivered the beneficiary certificate. You know. And then Jimmy and I, we were talking about also one thing that could be helpful. I know Transamerica has. I'm not sure about other apps, but it's utilizing the what do they call it, Jimmy? The second a- address. There's a name on the Transamerica
yeah,
form.
they call it the secondary addressee, and it's on
Explain how you
Facebook.
use that. How you what you said. Like how would you use that? Um, and then how does that relate into reducing your chargebacks?
Okay. Well, okay, let's first explain what a secondary addressee is. And so
Okay.
you put the name and address of a person where if this policy were to lapse, before it lapses, they're going to notify this secondary person of the policy status, right? That way, that person can contact the policy owner and make sure that's, you know, did you forget to make your payment, or is this something you did intentionally? Um, and so the way you present that to the client is say, now look, you know, Mr. Customer, Mrs. Customer, we want to put down here a secondary addressee so that in the event, maybe in the future, you have some sort of medical condition, or maybe an accident, and you're either in the hospital, or maybe you have to go to a skilled nursing center for rehabilitation, and to avoid any lapses in your coverage, if for some reason, you know, your payment isn't made, we'll mail this secondary person a letter so that they can confirm with you that, you know, that's something that you either intended not to pay, or, you know, you need to remind you to pay it. And that way we keep this in the book. So, you know, this is probably not something that's going to happen anytime in the near future. more likely to happen, years down the road. But, it's always good to have a secondary addressee on the application, and you just fill it in.
Yeah, so what's cool about that, guys, just think, so if the policy's lapsing, the beneficiary will get a notice. So this way, maybe it's a banking error, or maybe they're in the hospital. So it could really save, someone's policy and really save a financial hardship. Can you imagine? The beneficiary has no idea, but then they get this letter, and then they go back and say, "Mom, what's going on? I got this notification. Your policy is going to lapse." Oh, I don't know what happened. Or maybe there was a financial crisis. Well, Mom, I'll loan you the money. You can't let this policy lapse. So it's a great little tip using that secondary addressee part. Guys, we're going to move through this so we can finish on time. Communication, 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 communication. Staying in contact with your clients during the approval process. How important is that? Guys, I tell every client, Jimmy, I know you do the same thing, is that, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Client, as soon as I have a status on your application, I'll let you know. So a lot of times I'll either leave them a voicemail, or I'll make sure if I can get a hold of them, but I'll just let them know that their application's in process. I'll also will let them know when the policy is approved as well. Make sure that they have make sure if they have any questions, and also sometimes I'll just reconfirm. As an example, I'll say, "Hey, Jimmy, this is Joe, your agent. Hey, just to let you know, listen, I just got notification your policy's approved. And, like I said, it's for the $10,000 face amount. Your premiums are $74 a month, and it's scheduled for December the 3rd. Okay? If you have any issues, or if you have any questions, let me know." It'll save your deals. But here's what I can tell you. It's easier to save a deal up front than later. Meaning is that if your client, if they don't hear from you, and they get the policy in the mail, and they're looking at it and like, "Man, this is $74 a month. I can't afford this." They call the client, they call the insurance company to cancel it. Then you get an email from the insurance company, and then you call your client. They've already made up their mind. But if I stay ahead of the game, and I'm contacting my client, and I'm talking to Jimmy, and I'm asking him about that, and Jimmy says, "Man, I don't know if I can do this or not." And I say, "Jimmy, time out just for a second. You know what? I kind of got the feeling that maybe these premiums are a little bit high. Let's not do anything. I've got an opening tomorrow. I'm going to swing by about 3:30, and we're going to go over your options with you. And I'll go back to the house, and I'll save the deal." But this is about being a pro. This is the difference between being an amateur and a professional. And if you want professional type income, you have to do professional activities. Don't be an amateur. Be a pro. Let's see what else we got. Follow up on all lapses in carrier correspondence. How important is that, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, if you get a lapse notice, get on it. Chances are it was a banking error. About 50% of the lapses that happen are not a banking error, but they just didn't have the, not that they don't want the policy, they just didn't have the money that month. So,
Or it could be you wrote the account number down incorrectly. I've done that several
yep,
times.
yep. So just don't, when you get a lapse, just don't assume that the client doesn't want the policy. Follow up, man. Find out what happened. And then carrier correspondence, man. You get all those letters in the mail from Transamerica. Follow up on that stuff. Always coordinate insurance premiums with Social Security date. If your client gets paid on the 3rd, don't let them convince you that they want it to come out on the 5th, okay? Have it coordinated with their Social Security date. Either the 1st of the 3rd, or the 2nd, 3rd, or 4th Wednesday of the month. That's it. Has to be coordinated with it. Not much more to say on that one, I don't think. Oh, well, except if you're writing Transamerica, you can utilize the special Social Security billing form, okay, to make sure that it gets done. At the point of sale, make sure that you're using the plan receipt at the point of sale. What is that? That's where we're writing it down so the client knows you're reconfirming the amount and also what the premiums are going to be. That's huge. Do a 3-month checkup. After we've done all this, call your clients in 3 months. Say, hey, Jimmy, just checking in with you, man. Just want to make sure, how's your policy doing? If you can't get a hold of them, leave a voicemail. Maybe send another note. Ask for referrals. Hey, Jimmy, out of curiosity, have you thought of anybody else that maybe could really benefit from the services that I provide? Do a 3-month checkup. And then conduct annual reviews. Go out and see your clients that you wrote up 2 or 3 years ago. Sometimes I forget and I don't do annual reviews, and I call them 3 years later. I say, hey, man, we missed your last 2 annual reviews, but it's that time of year again. Let's do an annual review. Go out and check the status. And even if you don't sell, man, it's a great time to update their policy, make sure the beneficiaries are still good, and get more referrals. And a lot of times people will add on. Well, Joe, how much would it cost me for another, 5 grand or 3 grand or 7 grand, whatever. It's a free lead at the end of the day. We got more, guys. Send out birthday cards. Stay in touch with your clients. Constant communication. Send them a birthday card. Every client, every time I write an app, I've got an Excel spreadsheet. Put it in there. Organize it by birthdays. Make sure you're sending out the cards. There's also services that you can sign up if you don't want to do it. Track it manually. You can sign up for a service to do that. Birthday reminders. And I believe that's it, Jimmy. Anything else you can think of? Any other tips about reducing chargebacks?
Um, I I think that's it. I mean, there might be something else out there that somebody knows that they're doing. Share that tip with us. Uh,
Yeah.
but like Joe said earlier, if you do all the little things, what happens is that the client can see that you're really concerned about them and their best interest, and they know that you're for real. That in itself is really going to impress upon them your professionalism, and they're going to want to do business with you, and they're going to want to keep their policy in force. It's the opposite mentality where you're just a slam bam, thank you person. Let's get on to the next one. You're going for the highest premium, just slamming them, you're forgetting about them, you never contact them again. It's nothing for them to say, you know what, I had this unexpected expense, this unexpected emergency. I'll just let my insurance go. I mean, it's not like that guy, really, he's not concerned about me. I hadn't seen him or heard from him since the day he sold me the policy.
Yeah,
So,
hadn't even sent me a birthday card.
yeah. So,
Jimmy, you know how many referrals I've gotten from birthday cards? It's crazy. You would think, like, really? But yeah, people get a birthday card and they're like, oh man, I should call my agent Joe. I got a referral for him. It's just a reminder. So with that, guys, I appreciate everybody being on the call. Jimmy, thanks for all your input. I think this is gonna be a awesome call, awesome webinar to put up on the back end of the website. So with that, everybody have a great weekend. God bless you guys, and we'll talk to you soon.
bye-bye.
Bye bye.